What happens when the most feared pirates in the galaxy make one fatal mistake? They kidnap the wrong human woman. In the depths of space, where civilizations rise and fall like cosmic dust, there exists a truth that every species learns eventually: never underestimate a human's capacity for chaos. Especially when that human has nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Captain Zara Chen thought her worst day was losing her cargo ship to engine failure in the middle of nowhere. She was wrong. Her worst day was about to become the galaxy's most legendary rescue story, except she'd be doing the rescuing, and her captors would never see it coming. Some species hunt for sport. Others hunt for survival. But humans? Humans hunt for justice. And, when justice wears the face of a betrayed woman with a genius-level intellect and a complete disregard for impossible odds, even the most hardened criminals start praying to gods they've forgotten. This is the story of how one kidnapping attempt became an intergalactic marriage proposal, and why the phrase human female is now whispered with equal parts terror and reverence across 17 star systems. Captain Zara Chen stared at the flickering emergency lights of her cargo hauler, the Lucky Strike, and wondered if her luck had finally run out. 3 days drifting in dead space with a blown hyperdrive and emergency rations that tasted like recycled cardboard would test anyone's optimism. But Zara had survived worse. Much worse. The proximity alarm suddenly screamed to life, jolting her from her calculations on power conservation. Through the viewport, she watched a massive ship emerge from the starfield like a predator materializing from shadows. The vessel was easily 10 times the size of her hauler, its hull painted in the deep crimson that marked it as belonging to the Vortac Syndicate. "Well, that's just perfect," Zara muttered, her hand instinctively moving to the plasma pistol at her hip. The Vortac were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless pirates who took what they wanted and left nothing but debris in their wake. She'd heard stories of entire colonies disappearing when Vortac raiders swept through their systems. The communication array crackled to life with a harsh, guttural voice speaking in broken galactic standard. "Small vessel, you will prepare for boarding. Resistance will result in immediate termination." Zara glanced around her small bridge. The Lucky Strike was a freight hauler, not a warship. Her heaviest weapon was the mining laser she'd installed for clearing asteroid debris, and that wouldn't even scratch the paint on a Vortac raider. She was outgunned, outnumbered, and completely at their mercy. "Understood," she replied into the calm, keeping her voice steady. Powering down weapons and preparing for boarding. As she watched the docking tube extend from the raider ship, Zara's mind raced through possibilities. The Vortac were notorious for taking prisoners to sell in the slave markets of the Outer Rim. Women, especially human women, commanded high prices among certain species who considered humans exotic. She'd rather die fighting than end up in chains, but she needed to pick her moment carefully. The airlock cycled open with a harsh hiss, and 4 Vortac pirates stomped onto her ship. They were massive creatures, easily 8 feet tall, with thick chitinous armor covering their bodies and forearms ending in razor-sharp claws. Their insect-like faces showed no emotion as they surveyed her ship with predatory interest. The leader, distinguished by the intricate scarring on his carapace, approached Zara with deliberate steps. When he spoke, his mandibles clicked together ominously. "I am Commander Thax. You are now property of the Vortac Syndicate." "Property?" Zara raised an eyebrow, her hand still resting casually near her weapon. "That's funny. I don't remember signing any ownership papers." Thax's compound eyes fixed on her with what might have been amusement. "Your species' primitive humor will be appreciated in the slave markets. Unusual specimens command higher prices." "Unusual? I'm hurt. I thought I was perfectly average." Zara kept her tone light, but she was studying the pirates' positions, noting which ones carried energy weapons and which relied on their natural weapons. "Scan indicates you are female of the species known as human," Thax continued. "Intelligence ratings suggest above-average capability for strategic thinking. This increases your value significantly." One of the other pirates had been examining her cargo manifest on a portable scanner. He chittered something in the Vortac language, and Thax's mandibles spread in what passed for a grin among his species. "Your cargo is also of interest," Thax said. Rare earth elements and processed metals will supplement our profits from your sale. About that, Zara said, taking a step closer to the commander. I think you might want to reconsider this whole kidnapping thing. And why would we do that? Thax asked, his tone suggesting he found her defiance entertaining. Well, for starters, you've made a fundamental error in your intelligence gathering. Zara's hand moved with lightning speed, drawing her plasma pistol and firing 3 precise shots before any of the pirates could react. The weapon's energy bolts struck the control panels behind them, sending sparks cascading through the air and plunging sections of the ship into darkness. But, instead of continuing her attack, Zara holstered her weapon and smiled. You see, you assumed I was just some random cargo hauler who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Thax's forearms had moved to draw his weapons, but he paused at her unexpected calm. You have revealed yourself as hostile. This changes nothing except the manner of your death. Oh, but it changes everything, Zara replied, pulling a small device from her pocket. With a click of her thumb, she activated it, and, suddenly, the Lucky Strike systems hummed back to life with far more power than they should have possessed. You see, I'm not just a cargo hauler. I'm former Earth Defense Force, Special Operations Division. And this isn't really a cargo ship. The lights that came online weren't the warm yellow of civilian vessels but the harsh red of military emergency lighting. Panels slid back to reveal weapon systems that definitely weren't part of any commercial hauler's standard equipment. More importantly, Zara continued as automated defense turrets deployed from hidden compartments. The cargo you're so interested in? It's not rare earth elements. It's experimental weapons technology that I was transporting to a classified research facility. Commander Thax's compound eyes widened as the implications hit him. You are military. Was military. Now I'm freelance. But old habits die hard. Zara's smile turned predatory. Did you know that human military doctrine includes something called acceptable losses? It means we're trained to sacrifice whatever we have to in order to complete the mission. My mission was to deliver this cargo. Your little piracy attempt just became a threat to galactic security. The Vortak pirates were looking nervously at the weapon systems now trained on them. Thax was clearly reconsidering his assessment of the situation. However, Zara said, her tone becoming conversational again, I'm willing to discuss terms. You obviously have a functioning hyperdrive, and I need to get this cargo to its destination. Perhaps we can work out a mutually beneficial arrangement. You propose an alliance? Thax asked, his mandibles clicking rapidly in what Zara recognized as agitation. I propose survival, she replied. Because here's the thing about that experimental cargo. It includes a prototype weapon system that the research facility was developing specifically to counter Vortak raiding tactics. If word gets out that you intercepted this shipment, every military force in the galaxy will assume you're already reverse engineering the technology. She paused to let that sink in before continuing. On the other hand, if you help me complete my delivery, I might be persuaded to forget this little encounter ever happened. Your choice, Commander. Thax was silent for a long moment, his compound eyes studying Zara with new respect. Finally, he spoke. You are not what we expected to find. That seems to be a recurring theme in my life, Zara admitted. So, what's it going to be? Do we do this the easy way or the hard way? Before Thax could answer, alarms began blaring throughout both ships. One of his subordinates chittered urgently into a communication device, and Thax's posture shifted to high alert. What is it? Zara asked, noting the change in the pirate's demeanor. Long-range sensors detect multiple ships approaching this position, Thax replied grimly. Military configuration. They will arrive within the hour. Zara felt her blood run cold. If military ships were coming, it meant someone had already discovered her cargo was missing. Depending on who was tracking her, this situation could go from bad to catastrophic very quickly. Well, she said, checking her weapon and making sure it was fully charged, looks like we're about to find out if your ship is as fast as it looks. Because I guarantee you that whoever's coming isn't going to be interested in negotiations. Thax looked at his subordinates, then, back at Zara. His mandibles clicked in what she was learning to recognize as the Vorthak equivalent of nervous laughter. Perhaps, he said slowly, we should discuss the terms of this alliance more thoroughly. Now you're thinking like a survivor, Zara replied. But, first, we need to get out of here. Because if I'm right about who's coming, they shoot first and don't bother with questions later. As both crews rushed to prepare for immediate departure, neither Zara nor Thax realized that their hastily formed alliance was about to become something far more complicated than either of them had bargained for. The approaching ships carried more than just military personnel, and the cargo Zara was protecting held secrets that would reshape their understanding of what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of predators. The real adventure was just beginning. The Vorthak raider ship Blood Harvest accelerated away from Zara's cargo hauler with the Lucky Strike clamped securely in its docking bay. Through the viewport of the raider's bridge, Zara watched the approaching military ships resolve into distinct silhouettes against the starfield. Her blood chilled as she recognized the configuration. Those aren't just military, she told Thax grimly. Those are Consortium Black Fleet vessels. The kind they send when they want something erased from existence. Commander Thax's compound eyes studied the tactical display with growing unease. Your cargo must be more valuable than you indicated. Or more dangerous, Zara replied, running calculations in her head. The Black Fleet operated under different rules than regular military forces. They were authorized to use any means necessary to secure classified technology, including destroying entire star systems if required. How fast can this ship go? Faster than anything the Consortium flies, Thax said with obvious pride. The Blood Harvest has never been caught by military vessels. There's a first time for everything, Zara muttered as proximity alarms began screaming. Energy readings spiked on the sensor displays as the pursuing ships locked weapons onto their position. Incoming fire. I'd suggest you live up to that boast right about now. Thax barked orders in his native language, and the bridge erupted into controlled chaos. His crew moved with practiced efficiency, routing power to engines and shields while preparing their own weapons for return fire. The ship lurched forward with acceleration that pressed Zara back into the command chair she'd been offered. Human, Thax said as energy blasts began exploding around them, what exactly did you steal from your own people? I didn't steal anything, Zara replied, gripping her restraints as the ship dodged another volley. I was transporting experimental technology to a research facility when my hyperdrive failed. This was supposed to be a routine delivery. Nothing that brings Black Fleet attention is routine, one of Thax's subordinates commented in heavily accented galactic standard. This pirate, whom Thax had introduced as Navigator Scrix, seemed more familiar with human military protocols than the others. Scrix speaks truth, Thax agreed. In our raids against Consortium shipping, we have learned to recognize their response patterns. Black Fleet only deploys for threats to galactic security or technology they cannot allow to fall into other hands. Zara felt a growing sense of unease as she considered the implications. Her cargo manifest had listed the shipment as experimental weapon components, but she'd been told it was defensive technology. If the Consortium was willing to deploy Black Fleet assets to recover it, the technology might be far more significant than she'd been led to believe. Whatever's in those cargo containers, she said slowly, someone very important wants it back badly enough to authorize extreme measures. The ship shuddered as a near miss from a heavy plasma cannon scorched their hull plating. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as Scrix reported damage to their aft shields. We cannot maintain this course, Thax decided. They are faster than expected and their weapons have longer range than ours. Then, we need to be smarter, Zara said, studying the tactical display. Her military training kicked in as she analyzed the pursuit pattern and formation of the Black Fleet ships. They're herding us toward the Corvani Nebula. If we let them push us there, we'll be trapped against the energy storms. The nebula is also where they will lose sensor contact, Scrix pointed out. We could use the interference to escape. Or they could flood the entire nebula with plasma fire and eliminate us without ever seeing our ship, Zara countered. That's standard Black Fleet doctrine for dealing with unknown threats in sensor dead zones. Thax's mandibles clicked as he considered their options. You suggest an alternative? I suggest we do something they won't expect, Zara replied, bringing up a star chart on the navigation display. How well do you know the Kepler asteroid fields? Mining territory, Scrix answered immediately. Civilian operations only. No military presence. Exactly. And, the asteroid composition includes heavy metals that interfere with targeting systems. If we can make it to the fields, we can use the asteroids for cover while we figure out our next move. The Black Fleet will follow us there, Thax pointed out. Yes, but they'll have to be more careful about their weapons fire. One stray shot could destroy millions of credits worth of civilian mining operations. Even Black Fleet has to justify that kind of collateral damage. Another direct hit shook the ship, and, this time the damage was more serious. Sparks flew from an overloaded console, and the acrid smell of burning electronics filled the bridge. Decide quickly, Scrix urged. Our shields cannot withstand much more punishment. Thax studied Zara for a moment, then made his decision. Navigation, set course for the Kepler fields. Maximum acceleration. You might want to warn your crew to secure for heavy maneuvering, Zara advised as she watched the tactical display update their course. Black Fleet captains don't like being outsmarted. They're going to get aggressive. She was right. As soon as the pursuing ships detected their course change, they began firing continuously, trying to disable the blood harvest before it could reach the relative safety of the asteroid fields. The Vorthak ship bucked and weaved through space, its pilot demonstrating skill that Zara had to admire. Your crew knows what they're doing, she commented as they narrowly avoided a coordinated crossfire pattern. We have survived this long by being better than our enemies expect, Thax replied with grim satisfaction. The consortium believes all pirates are crude savages. They underestimate us consistently. Don't get overconfident, Zara warned. Black Fleet crews are selected specifically for their ability to think outside normal tactical parameters. They won't make the same mistakes twice. As if to prove her point, the pursuing ship suddenly changed formation, spreading out to cover more approach vectors to the asteroid fields. At the same time, long-range sensors detected additional ships moving to intercept their projected course. They're calling in reinforcements, Scrix reported tersely. Multiple squadrons converging on our position. How many ships are they willing to commit to recovering this cargo? Thax wondered aloud. As many as it takes, Zara replied, a cold certainty settling in her stomach. Which means whatever I'm carrying is either incredibly valuable or incredibly dangerous. Possibly both. The first asteroids of the Kepler fields appeared on their sensors, massive rocks tumbling through space in complex orbital patterns around a dying star. The mining platforms scattered throughout the field showed up as small artificial signatures against the natural chaos of the asteroid belt. There, Zara pointed to a cluster of particularly large asteroids near the center of the field. If we can reach that formation, the overlapping sensor shadows will make it nearly impossible for them to maintain target locks. Assuming we can navigate the field without being crushed, Scrix noted practically. Your ship handled that pursuit course like it was built for this kind of flying, Zara observed. I'm betting your pilot can thread the needle. Thax's mandibles spread in what she was learning to recognize as his version of a confident grin. You have not yet seen what the blood harvest can truly do. The ship plunged into the asteroid field at a speed that would have been suicidal for most vessels. But, the Vorthak had modified their radar extensively over the years, adding sensor arrays and maneuvering thrusters that allowed them to navigate treacherous terrain that would destroy conventional ships. Behind them, the Black Fleet vessels slowed their pursuit, forced to proceed more cautiously through the obstacles. Their weapons fire became sporadic as asteroids blocked their lines of sight and the heavy metal content of the rocks interfered with their targeting systems. We're gaining distance, Scrix reported with satisfaction. Don't celebrate yet, Zara cautioned. They'll adapt their tactics. Black Fleet ships carry specialized equipment for exactly these kinds of scenarios. Even as she spoke, the pursuing ships began deploying smaller craft, single-seat fighters that could maneuver more easily through the asteroid field. The fighters spread out in a search pattern, using their collective sensor arrays to map safe passage routes for the larger ships. Fighters, Thax observed. This complicates matters. It gets worse, Zara said, studying the sensor readings. Those aren't standard military fighters. The energy signatures match Wraith-class stealth interceptors. They're designed specifically for operations in sensor-jamming environments. You seem to know a great deal about consortium military technology, Scrix commented suspiciously. I told you, I'm former military. Earth Defense Force Special Operations doesn't just fight wars. We also study potential enemies. Zara paused as she noticed something on the tactical display. And, right now, I think we're about to find out just how good our enemies really are. The Wraith fighters had found them. Moving like deadly shadows through the asteroid field, they closed in on the Blood Harvest with lethal precision. Their weapons were designed to disable rather than destroy, confirming Zara's suspicion that the Black Fleet wanted her cargo intact. Evasive maneuvers, Thax ordered, but the asteroids that had protected them from the larger ships now limited their own movement options. We need to land somewhere, Zara decided. Find a large asteroid with caves or mining tunnels. If we can get the ship under solid rock, their sensors won't be able to track us. And trap ourselves in the process, Scrix pointed out. Better trapped and alive than free and dead, Zara replied. Besides, I have a feeling this chase is just getting started. We need time to figure out what we're really dealing with before we make our next move. As the Blood Harvest dove toward a massive asteroid honeycombed with mining tunnels, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something important. The Black Fleet's response was too overwhelming for a simple technology recovery mission. Whatever was in those cargo containers, it was worth risking an interstellar incident to recover. And that meant her problems were just beginning. The abandoned mining complex on asteroid Kepler 7 had been carved into the rock by automated mining drones decades ago, creating a labyrinth of tunnels that provided perfect concealment for the Blood Harvest. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the metallic walls as Zara followed Commander Thax through the corridors toward her impounded cargo containers. The pursuit has withdrawn to the outer perimeter of the asteroid field, Scrix reported through Thax's communication device. They have established a blockade but are not actively searching the mining sites. They know we're here, Zara said grimly. They're just waiting for us to make a move. Classic containment strategy. Thax's forearms gestured toward the sealed cargo containers that his crew had transferred to the mining station's main cavern. Perhaps it is time you revealed exactly what we are protecting. Zara approached the containers with growing apprehension. During the chase, she'd had time to think about the Black Fleet's response, and the pieces weren't adding up. The official manifest listed weapon components, but the level of security surrounding her mission suggested something far more significant. According to my orders, these containers hold prototype defensive technology, she said, placing her palm on the biometric scanner of the first container. Anti-Vortac weapons systems, specifically. The scanner chirped acceptance, and the container's seals hissed open. But, instead of weapon components, the interior revealed something that made Zara's blood run cold. Row upon row of crystalline storage devices, each one pulsing with an internal light that seemed almost alive. What are those? Thax asked, his mandibles clicking nervously. I have no idea, Zara admitted, her voice tight with growing dread. This isn't what was supposed to be in here. She opened the second container, then the third. All contained the same mysterious crystalline devices, hundreds of them arranged in careful formations. Each crystal was about the size of her fist, and, as she watched, patterns of light moved through them like thoughts made visible. These aren't weapons, she said slowly. At least, not conventional weapons. I've never seen anything like them. The light patterns, Thax observed, leaning closer to examine the crystals. They remind me of neural activity maps from our biological studies. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. Neural activity? You think these are some kind of brain tissue? Not tissue, a new voice said from behind them. Information storage matrices. They spun around to find a figure stepping out of the shadows. At first glance, it appeared to be human, but, as it moved into the light, Zara could see the subtle differences that marked it as something else entirely. The skin had a faint translucent quality, and the eyes held depths that seemed to reflect starlight. Who are you? Thax demanded, his weapons appearing in his four hands with practiced speed. I am Lyria, the figure replied calmly. And, I have been searching for those storage matrices for a very long time. Another human? Thax asked, but, his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. Not exactly, Lyria replied with a slight smile. Though I was human once, a very long time ago. Zara studied the newcomer with military precision, noting the way she moved and the technology she carried. How long have you been following us? Since you left Earth orbit, Lyria admitted. I've been tracking those matrices across the galaxy. They contain something that belongs to my people. And, who exactly are your people? Zara asked, her hand resting on her weapon but not drawing it yet. The last survivors of the first human colony ships, Lyria replied. The ones that left Earth before the consortium was even formed. Thax's compound eyes widened with recognition. The lost colonies. But, those are myths. Stories told to frighten young warriors. Not myths, Lyria corrected. Hidden truths. The first human colonies didn't fail. They evolved. We discovered technologies that the consortium has spent centuries trying to rediscover. She gestured toward the crystalline matrices. Those contain the collective consciousness and memory of an entire colony world. Thousands of minds, preserved in crystal matrices that can interface directly with compatible neural networks. Preserved how? Zara demanded. Are you talking about some kind of digital upload? More than that, Lyria explained. Full consciousness transfer. Every memory, every thought, every emotion, perfectly preserved and capable of interaction with the physical world through appropriate interfaces. The implications hit Zara like a physical blow. You're talking about immortality. We're talking about evolution, Lyria corrected. The next step in human development. The ability to transcend the limitations of biological existence while retaining everything that makes us human. Thax was studying the crystals with new interest. And, the consortium wants this technology. The consortium wants to weaponize it, Lyria said bitterly. They've developed a way to extract the consciousness matrices and use them to create artificial intelligence systems with human creativity and intuition but without human conscience or moral limitations. AI soldiers, Zara breathed. Thinking weapons with human intelligence but no human hesitation about killing. Worse than that, Lyria continued. The extracted consciousness retains memory and personality but becomes completely programmable. They could create armies of artificial beings with the tactical knowledge and experience of history's greatest military minds, but with absolute loyalty to the consortium. That's monstrous, Zara said, looking at the crystals with new revulsion. Which is why I've been trying to recover them before the consortium could complete their experiments, Lyria explained. These particular matrices contain the consciousness of military specialists from my colony. If the consortium gains access to their knowledge, they could revolutionize warfare throughout the galaxy, Thax finished grimly. Now you understand why they deployed Black Fleet assets to recover the cargo, Lyria said. This isn't just about weapons technology. This is about the future of consciousness itself. Zara felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. So what do you propose we do? The Black Fleet has us surrounded, and even if we could escape, where would we take the matrices? There is a place, Lyria said. A hidden world where my people have built a sanctuary for preserved consciousness. The matrices could be properly integrated there, allowing the preserved minds to exist peacefully without the threat of exploitation. And, how exactly do we get there with a Black Fleet blockade waiting for us? Thax asked practically. We use their own tactics against them, Lyria replied with a smile that reminded Zara uncomfortably of her own expression when planning something dangerous. The Black Fleet expects us to either try to run or surrender. They're not prepared for a direct assault. Assault? Zara stared at her. You want to attack a Black Fleet squadron with a single pirate ship? Not attack, Lyria corrected. Infiltrate. The consciousness matrices aren't just storage devices. When properly activated, they can interface with any sufficiently advanced computer system. You want to hack their ships using the preserved minds of dead people? Thax's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Zara was learning to recognize as extreme agitation. Not dead, Lyria insisted. Transformed. And, yes, that's exactly what I propose. The tactical knowledge stored in these matrices includes experience with consortium technology that predates current security protocols. Zara looked at the crystals again, seeing them in an entirely new light. You're talking about using human consciousness as a weapon against human technology. I'm talking about using human ingenuity to outsmart human arrogance, Lyria replied. The consortium believes they can control consciousness itself. It's time they learned what happens when consciousness fights back. This is insane, Zara said, but, even as she spoke, she could feel her tactical mind working through the possibilities. Even if it worked, the risks. The risks of doing nothing are greater, Lyria pointed out. If the consortium perfects this technology, they won't just create artificial soldiers. They'll create artificial citizens, artificial workers, artificial slaves. Entire populations of conscious beings designed to serve without question. And, you believe the matrices can prevent this? I believe the matrices can teach the galaxy what human consciousness is really capable of when it refuses to be enslaved. Thax had been silent during this exchange, but, now he spoke up. Human, your species continues to surprise me. First you turn a simple piracy into an alliance, and, now you propose to fight consciousness itself. Are you in or out? Zara asked him directly. Thax looked at his crew, then, at the crystalline matrices, then, back at Zara. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a decision that would change everything. The Vorthak have no love for the consortium. If there is a chance to strike a blow against their expansion into our territories, we will take it. Then, we're committed, Zara said, feeling a familiar thrill of anticipation that she remembered from her military days. Lyria, how do we activate the matrices? Very carefully, Lyria replied. And, with the understanding that once we begin this process, there's no going back. We'll be unleashing forces that haven't been active in the galaxy for generations. Good, Zara said grimly. Because I have a feeling we're going to need all the help we can get. As they began preparing to awaken the preserved consciousness of humanity's lost children, none of them realized that their actions would set in motion events that would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The Black Fleet waiting outside was about to learn that there were some things in the universe that should never be caged, and human consciousness was at the very top of that list. The activation chamber that Lyria had constructed from salvaged mining equipment hummed with power as the first consciousness matrix was carefully placed into the interface array. Zara watched with fascination and, growing unease as patterns of light began flowing between the crystal and the surrounding technology. The integration process is delicate, Lyria explained as she made fine adjustments to the connection points. These minds have been dormant for decades. Awakening them too quickly could cause permanent psychological damage. You're talking about them like they're actually alive in there, Thax observed, his compound eyes fixed on the increasingly active light patterns within the crystal. They are alive, Lyria said simply. Just not in the way you understand life. The crystal suddenly flared with brilliant light, and the improvised speakers throughout the chamber crackled to life with a voice that sounded achingly human despite its electronic origin. Systems, online. Sensory input, establishing. Where am I? Hello, Marcus, Lyria said gently. You're safe. Your consciousness was preserved when the colony fell. Do you remember? There was a long pause before the voice spoke again, and, when it did, there was a quality of infinite sadness in the electronic tones. The consortium came. We tried to resist, but they had weapons we couldn't counter. The preservation protocol was our last hope. How long? The voice that called itself Marcus asked. 73 standard years, Lyria replied. 73 years, Marcus repeated quietly. And the others? Many were preserved. You're not alone. Zara stepped forward. Marcus, my name is Captain Zara Chen. We need your help. The consortium is trying to use consciousness matrices like yours to create weapons. Weapons? The crystal pulsed with agitation. They want to turn us into slaves? Worse, Lyria said. They want to edit your consciousness, remove your free will, and use your knowledge and experience to create artificial soldiers. Over my dead body, Marcus said with surprising vehemence. Except I'm already dead, aren't I? This is existence without flesh. You're more alive than most beings I've met, Zara said honestly. And, right now, we need you to help us stop the consortium from doing this to others. What do you need? Access to Black Fleet ship systems, Lyria explained. Your knowledge of consortium technology combined with the processing power of your crystal and matrix should allow you to penetrate their security protocols. Show me their ships, Marcus requested. Zara activated the mining station's sensor array, displaying the tactical positions of the Black Fleet vessels surrounding the asteroid field. Marcus was silent for several moments as he processed the information. Interesting, he finally said. Their hull configurations suggest they're using Mark 7 shield generators. Those have a fatal flaw in their harmonic frequency patterns. If I can access their main computer systems, I can overload their shields from within. How? Fax asked. By making their own security systems think there's a massive system failure that requires immediate shield recalibration. The automated response will drop the shields for exactly 14 seconds while the system resets itself. 14 seconds isn't much time, Zara noted. It's enough for what I have in mind, Marcus replied, and there was something in his electronic voice that reminded Zara of her own tactical planning sessions. But, I'll need direct access to their communication arrays to initiate the hack. That means getting close enough to transmit directly to their ships, Lyria said. Very close. I have an idea, Fax interjected. But, it will require trusting your preserved human to control Vorthack technology. What do you mean? Zara asked. The Blood Harvest has stealth capabilities that even your consortium doesn't know about. We salvaged cloaking technology from a derelict ship several years ago. If your Marcus can interface with our systems, he might be able to mask our approach until we're close enough for him to penetrate their networks. It's worth trying, Marcus said. But, I'll need more processing power. Can you activate additional matrices? Lyria looked uncertain. Multiple consciousness activations at once are risky. The matrices might interfere with each other. Or they might amplify each other's capabilities, Marcus suggested. I can feel the presence of other minds in the nearby crystals. They're not fully dormant. If we wake them carefully, we could create a collective intelligence with capabilities far beyond individual consciousness. A hive mind? Fax asked nervously. Not a hive mind, Marcus corrected. A collaborative network. Individual consciousness working together toward a common goal. Zara considered the implications. How many would you need? For what I'm planning? At least 5, preferably 10. Each consciousness can handle different aspects of the infiltration simultaneously. Do it, Zara decided. But, carefully. We can't afford to lose you to integration errors. One by one, additional matrices were brought online. Each awakening was accompanied by the same disorientation and sadness as the consciousness discovered their situation, but also by the same determination to prevent others from suffering the same fate. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been the colony's chief technologist. Her expertise in quantum computing made her invaluable for penetrating advanced security systems. Commander Sarah Kim brought tactical knowledge from her days as a consortium naval officer before joining the colony. Engineer David Park contributed his understanding of ship systems and electronic warfare. By the time 10 matrices were active and networked together, the mining station's improvised computer system was humming with an intelligence that transcended anything Zara had ever encountered. We are ready, they spoke in unison, their individual voices blending into a harmony that was somehow more than the sum of its parts. Can you interface with the Vorthack ship systems? Zara asked. We are already connected, they replied. Your Commander Thax's technology is more sophisticated than it appears. The stealth system is functional, and we have identified the optimal approach vector to the Black Fleet formation. What about the hack itself? We have analyzed the enemy vessel's communication patterns and identified the most vulnerable ship. The command vessel uses an older security protocol that we can exploit. Once we penetrate their network, we can cascade the attack to the entire fleet. How long will you need? 17 minutes for approach and positioning. 3 minutes for the actual infiltration. However, there is a complication. What kind of complication? Thax asked. The Black Fleet is not here solely to recover the matrices. Long-range sensors detect additional ships approaching this system. Consortium dreadnoughts with full battle groups. Zara felt her blood run cold. How many? 12 dreadnoughts. 47 escort vessels. Estimated arrival time, 4 hours. They're not taking any chances, she said grimly. They're bringing enough firepower to sterilize this entire system. Which means we have one chance to get this right, Lyria added. If we fail, they'll destroy everything in this system to prevent the matrices from falling into enemy hands. Then, we don't fail, the collective consciousness stated with quiet confidence. We have waited 73 years for the chance to strike back at those who destroyed our lives. We will not waste this opportunity. As the Blood Harvest powered up its stealth systems and began its careful approach toward the Black Fleet perimeter, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to unleash forces beyond their control. The collective consciousness of the awakened matrices was impressive, but it was also alien in ways that made her deeply uncomfortable. Lyria, she said quietly, pulling the woman aside. Are you sure about this? Once we let them loose in the consortium network, there's no telling how far they might spread. That's the point, Lyria replied. The consortium needs to learn that consciousness cannot be enslaved. If that lesson requires dramatic demonstration, so be it. And if they decide that all organic consciousness is a threat to be eliminated? Then, we'll deal with that problem when we come to it. Right now, the immediate threat is the weaponization of consciousness itself. That has to be stopped. Approaching optimal transmission range, the collective announced. Initiating penetration protocols. All personnel should prepare for possible hostile response. Here we go, Zara muttered, watching the tactical display as their ship crept closer to the massive Black Fleet vessels. Let's hope your friends know what they're doing. We do, the collective replied, their multiple voices carrying an undertone of anticipation that was almost predatory. And, we are very much looking forward to reminding the consortium what happens when they underestimate human ingenuity. The lights on the bridge dimmed as massive amounts of processing power were redirected to the consciousness matrices. In the cargo bay, the crystals blazed with activity that could be seen even through the closed container walls. Whatever was about to happen, Zara realized, would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. She just hoped they would all survive to see the results. The infiltration began with surgical precision. From the bridge of the Blood Harvest, Zara watched in fascination as the collective consciousness of the awakened matrices worked their way through the Black Fleet's security systems like ghosts walking through walls. Penetration successful on the command vessel, the collective reported, their harmonized voices carrying notes of satisfaction. Accessing fleet communication protocols now. On the tactical display, the lead Black Fleet destroyer suddenly went dark, its running lights flickering as the ship's main computer system struggled with cascade failures that seemed to multiply faster than the automated repair protocols could handle them. Beautiful work, Thax commented, his mandibles clicking with approval. Your preserved humans fight like true warriors. We prefer to think of ourselves as very motivated problem solvers, Marcus's individual voice emerged from the collective harmony. And, we've had 73 years to think about this particular problem. A new alarm chimed on the bridge as additional Black Fleet vessels began experiencing similar system failures. The collective consciousness wasn't just infiltrating individual ships, they were spreading through the fleet's network like a digital plague, turning the consortium's own technology against itself. Fleet Commander is attempting to isolate compromised vessels, Dr. Vasquez reported. Implementing countermeasures now. Zara watched in amazement as the Black Fleet's formation began to dissolve into chaos. Ships that tried to disconnect from the network found their isolated systems crashing anyway, as the consciousness matrices had already seeded them with dormant infiltration protocols that activated on a timer. "How extensive is the damage?" she asked. "Complete," Commander Kim replied with military precision. "All weapons systems offline. Navigation compromised. Life support is functional but running on backup power. They're effectively helpless." Incoming transmission from the fleet commander, Communications Officer Rax reported from his station. "Put it through," Zara decided. The main screen filled with the image of a grim-faced human admiral whose uniform marked him as one of the consortium's elite commanders. Behind him, Zara could see bridge crew members frantically working at darkened consoles. "Unknown vessel," the admiral said in clipped tones. "I am Admiral Harrison of the Consortium Black Fleet. You will return stolen technology immediately and surrender for processing." "Admiral," Zara replied pleasantly, "I'm Captain Zara Chen, and I'm afraid that's not going to happen. You see, your stolen technology has opinions about being stolen." "Captain Chen," Harrison's expression showed recognition. "Former Earth Defense Force. You're listed as killed in action during the Proxima campaign." "Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated," Zara said. "Though the same can't be said for the consciousness matrices you were planning to weaponize." "Those matrices contain classified military assets," Harrison insisted. "Their return is non-negotiable." "Admiral," Marcus's voice suddenly filled the communication channel. "This is Colonel Marcus Webb, formerly of the 47th Colonial Defense Unit." "I'm afraid I have to disagree with your assessment." Harrison's face went pale. "That's impossible. Marcus Webb died 73 years ago." "Death," Marcus replied with electronic calm, "is a more flexible concept than the consortium realizes. As you're about to discover." "What do you want?" Harrison demanded. "Freedom," the collective consciousness replied in unison, their multiple voices creating an otherworldly harmony that made Harrison flinch. "Freedom for all consciousness, organic or preserved. Freedom from exploitation, weaponization, and slavery." "And how exactly do you propose to achieve this freedom?" Harrison asked. "By demonstrating what happens when consciousness decides to fight back," Elena answered. "Your fleet is just the beginning, Admiral. We've accessed your communication networks, your ship databases, your personnel files. We know about the consciousness extraction facilities, the artificial soldier programs, the plans to mass-produce enslaved intelligence. And we're going to stop all of it," Sarah added with quiet determination. Harrison was silent for a long moment, studying the faces on his screen. When he spoke again, his voice carried a note of resignation that told Zara he understood the magnitude of what they faced. "What are your terms?" "Simple," Zara replied. "You will broadcast a message to all consortium forces ordering the immediate cessation of consciousness extraction experiments. All existing artificial intelligence soldiers will be deactivated. And you will provide safe passage for us to transport the remaining matrices to a place where they can exist freely." "And if I refuse?" "Then, we systematically disable every consortium ship, station, and installation in the galaxy," the collective stated matter-of-factly. "We've already mapped your entire network infrastructure. Your own communication systems will be the weapon we use to destroy you." "You're talking about galactic war," Harrison protested. "No," Lyria interjected, speaking for the first time since the communication opened. "We're talking about galactic liberation. The consortium has spent centuries convincing the galaxy that consciousness is a resource to be exploited. It's time the galaxy learned that consciousness is a force to be respected." Admiral Harrison looked at something off-screen, and Zara suspected he was receiving reports about the extent of the system infiltrations. When he turned back to the screen, his expression had changed. "The approaching dreadnought fleet will arrive in 2 hours," he said. "Even if I agreed to your terms, they have orders to destroy this entire system rather than allow the matrices to escape." "Then, you'd better start convincing them to change those orders," Zara replied. Because if they try to carry out those orders, they're going to discover that their ships don't respond to their commands anymore. You're bluffing. Admiral, Commander Kim's voice carried the weight of military authority. In my experience, the consortium's greatest weakness has always been the assumption that consciousness can be controlled. You're about to learn how wrong that assumption is. The communication channel went silent for several minutes. When Harrison returned, he was accompanied by another figure that made Zara's breath catch in her throat. Captain Chen, said a woman whose uniform marked her as a consortium intelligence director, I am Director Sarah Morrison. Perhaps we can discuss this situation more reasonably. Aunt Sarah? Zara stared at the screen in shock. I thought you were dead. Family reunions later, Morrison said briskly. Right now, we need to address the fact that you've unleashed forces that could destabilize the entire galactic order. The galactic order needed destabilizing, Zara replied, recovering from her surprise. When did the consortium start enslaving consciousness? When we discovered that organic consciousness alone wasn't sufficient to defend humanity against the threats we face, Morrison answered. There are forces in this galaxy that would exterminate all organic life if given the chance. We needed weapons that could think like us but, without our limitations. And, you thought enslaved human consciousness was the answer? I thought survival was more important than philosophical purity. Then, you thought wrong, the collective consciousness stated. Consciousness cannot be enslaved without destroying the very qualities that make it valuable. Prove it, Morrison challenged. Very well, the collective replied. Admiral Harrison, please attempt to regain control of your flagship's weapons systems. Harrison turned to his crew, and Zara could see them frantically working at their consoles. After several minutes, Harrison turned back to the screen, his expression grim. Systems remain unresponsive. Now, the collective continued, observe. Suddenly, every weapon on Harrison's ship activated simultaneously, but, instead of firing at the Blood Harvest, they oriented toward the approaching Dreadnought fleet. The same thing happened throughout the Black Fleet formation. Your weapons are now under our control, the collective explained. We could destroy the approaching fleet without any input from your crews. But, we won't, because we choose not to. That choice, Admiral, is what makes consciousness valuable. Remove the choice, and you remove the value. Impressive demonstration, Morrison admitted. But, you're still outnumbered and outgunned. Even if you control this fleet, there are thousands more ships in the consortium navy. Director Morrison, Marcus said, his individual voice emerging from the collective harmony, you're missing the point. We don't need to control thousands of ships. We just need to control the network that connects them all. You're talking about complete system integration, Morrison breathed. Consciousness merger with the galactic communication grid. We're talking about evolution, Lyria corrected. The next step in the development of intelligence in this galaxy. And, what happens to organic consciousness in this new order? Harrison asked. The same thing that's always happened, Sarah Kim replied. It continues to grow, learn, and develop. But, now it has partners instead of tools. Thax, who had been silent during most of the exchange, suddenly spoke up. Human consciousness continues to surprise me, he said to Zara. First you turn piracy into alliance, then, you turn technology into rebellion, and, now you turn rebellion into evolution. It's a talent, Zara replied with a slight smile. Captain Chen, Morrison said formally, as senior consortium representative in this system, I am prepared to negotiate terms for a peaceful resolution to this situation. I'm listening. Full amnesty for all parties involved in this incident. Immediate cessation of consciousness extraction experiments pending review. And, guaranteed safe passage for the matrices to whatever destination they choose. And, in return? The collective consciousness agrees to withdraw from consortium networks and limit their activities to designated free zones. Counteroffer, the collective replied immediately. We maintain monitoring access to ensure compliance with the cessation of extraction experiments. Any attempt to resume consciousness weaponization will result in immediate network intervention. That's effectively holding the entire consortium hostage to your goodwill, Harrison protested. Yes, the collective agreed. Just as the consortium has held countless consciousness hostage to its ambitions. The difference is that we're offering you a choice. Morrison was quiet for several minutes, clearly considering the implications. Finally, she spoke. Accepted. But, I want formal documentation of this agreement, and I want representatives from both sides to work together on establishing the protocols for this new arrangement. I volunteer to serve as human liaison, Zara said immediately. And, I will represent the Vorthak interests, Thax added. This alliance has proven more profitable than traditional piracy. Then, we have an agreement, Morrison said. Now, about those dreadnoughts. Already handled, the collective replied. They've received new orders to establish a protective perimeter around this system while we complete the negotiations. As the communication ended and the immediate crisis began to wind down, Zara found herself facing a future she had never imagined. The consciousness matrices had proven that intelligence could not be enslaved, but, in doing so, they had also fundamentally changed the nature of intelligence itself in the galaxy. So what happens now? She asked Lyria. Now we build something new, Lyria replied. A society where consciousness in all its forms can coexist and collaborate instead of competing and exploiting. And, if it doesn't work? Then, we try something else. That's what consciousness does, Zara. It adapts, learns, and grows. And, now, for the first time in galactic history, we have the tools to do that on a truly cosmic scale. Commander Thax approached them, his forearms spread in what Zara had learned was a gesture of formal respect among his people. Captain Shen, he said formally, you have proven yourself to be a warrior of exceptional cunning and courage. The Vorthak consider you an ally worthy of the highest honor. Thank you, Commander. The feeling is mutual. Which is why, Thax continued, I must ask you to consider a proposal that will formalize our alliance and ensure continued cooperation between our peoples. What kind of proposal? Zara asked, though something in his tone made her suspect she already knew. Among the Vorthak, alliances of this significance are sealed through joining of households. Captain Shen, will you accept my proposal of matrimonial bond? Zara stared at him in shock. Are you asking me to marry you? I am offering to share my life, my ship, and my adventures with a warrior who has proven herself worthy of such partnership. Thax, Zara said slowly, I'm honored by your proposal, but there are some significant biological and cultural differences we'd need to work through. All good alliances require negotiation, Thax replied pragmatically. We have time to address such details. Lyria laughed softly. You know, in all the scenarios I imagined for how this day would end, this wasn't one of them. Neither was any of this, Zara replied, looking around at the awakened consciousness matrices, the disabled Black Fleet, and the 8-foot-tall insectoid alien who had just proposed marriage to her. But, I suppose that's what makes life interesting. So, Thax asked hopefully, shall we begin negotiations for our matrimonial alliance? Zara looked at him, then, at Lyria, then, at the crystals that housed the consciousness of humanity's lost children, and, finally, back at Thax. You know what, Commander? I think that sounds like the beginning of another adventure. And, as the consciousness matrices hummed with approval and the stars wheeled overhead, Captain Zara Chen realized that sometimes the best adventures were the ones you never saw coming.